Okay. Welcome to the Let's Talk series. The Let's Talk series is a 30-minute video discussion between Dr. Amanda, Dr. Becca, and a local practitioner who understands pelvic health on topics pertaining to women's health and wellness. This series was created to help women navigate their pelvic health wherever they are on the path of womanhood, to advocate, navigate, and collaborate together with a holistic team of allies. Pelvic health healing, and just healing in general, is multidimensional, and the best outcomes occur with a team-based approach. We invite you to tune into our monthly series to learn more about your pelvic health and engage with our community partners. So welcome to Joanna. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, how are you?
Joanna is she is a registered dietitian who specializes in weight neutral and client-centered nutritional care. She owns a group practice here in Collingswood, New Jersey, called Vita Nutrition Services. You might have seen the sign on the door that my office is in. Thank you, Joanna, for sharing your space.
You're so welcome.
Where they help clients to care for their bodies while honoring their genetic blueprint, all the while having fun. So Joanna was born and raised in South Jersey. She lives with her husband, Jeremy, her two little boys, Lincoln and Judah, and recently a small zoo of animals.
Oh, yes, we have like a bunch. I mean, I feel like it's a bunch, but it's really just 3. I just thought we were going to have 1 dog, but now it's exploded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so a self-proclaimed accidental entrepreneur over here. She loves all things sciencey, techie, and helping people how to learn to care for their bodies in authentic and loving ways. So we're so excited today. Joanna's going to kind of talk to us about filling your life's buckets, learning how to listen to what you need in a noisy world. So I'm like, well, this is going to be great for
everyone,
for me, for everyone.
Right.
So we're super excited. Thank you, Joanna, for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really pumped to get started. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So talk to us about these life buckets.
Yeah, sure. So we over the years, so I've been in private practice for a bunch of years now. And so one of the things that kept coming up in our sessions, it's when I first started becoming a dietitian, I was like, oh, here, maybe I can just make it nutrition really approachable and all of those things. And there kept being like these big barriers in people's way. And we kept just talking about like, well, try to add more apples to your life, or try to like that. But when I really looked at it, we wanted to really navigate and work through not just what to do, but also what was standing in your way and how to make it really work for you. So that's kind of where the buckets came from. So to kind of define a bucket, it's anything that you are emotionally, mentally, or logistically responsible for. So especially for women, that is about a million things.
It's like everything.
So
yeah.
it's basically everything.
Basically.
So one of the things that we really do is look at that. And so like, let's just use an example. So this might be helpful. So a lot of times my clients will come to us and be like, I'm terrible. I can't believe I can't eat breakfast. Like, I don't understand, like everybody else eats breakfast. Why can't I eat breakfast? And then when we kind of take a big world, like a big bird's eye view at the whole thing, we look down and go like, oh, like you don't have like childcare help in the morning, and like you have to like do all of these things and then pack lunches, and then by the time you get back, like, oh, then you have to run to work and then you're forgetting lunch. And so the breakfast wasn't the issue. It was all of the other things that were kind of standing in our way. So so that's kind of where it all came from. It's just trying to figure out like, what are the things that we're working with, not just nutrition, but also all the other little parts that can kind of stand in our way too.
Yeah, I think it kind of is like how we provide or prescribe like exercise programming. And even if it's something as simple as like tuck your chin and roll to your toes to get your spinal fluid to move because you have nerve pain, and people are like, I didn't do it, I'll be completely honest. Like, you hear that a lot.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a lot of knowledge for us to kind of look at the buckets of why maybe a home program isn't getting done, or why somebody maybe hasn't made that important doctor appointment too that they need. So,
yeah, and it can feel really scary to be like, oh, I'm just gonna have to like add more to my already full plate. So I think that's a lot of, that you see and we see working with women is, how can we make these things work for each person? So this will be something that I feel like we'll be able to use with our clients too, of kind of being able to help figure out, all right, how are we going to navigate through this and identify barriers and help kind of work
Absolutely.
through that. So
Exactly. Yeah. And I think one of the big things too is that a lot of times we don't even realize that all of the things that we're doing because they're just normal. Like, but when we really look at how they're all kind of working together, it can be really, really difficult too. So if we think about one of the things that we could start with is just really like recognizing what our buckets are. So with our clients, we kind of, and if you want to do this, you can get a pen and paper and write them out, like what other buckets you have. So we kind of categorize them into two categories. So internal buckets, and those are our self-care buckets. So those are the things that help us be happy and healthy as people. And one of the things I always say with a little asterisk at this point is that we are, as adults, our primary caregivers. So our children have maybe our partner or people at school or different things like that who are also helping to care for them. But as people, this is it. Like no one's going to be like, eat breakfast and then make you breakfast and then feed you breakfast. So a lot of times we don't think about that, like that we're caring for everybody else, but we are the only person that's going to care for ourselves. So we really, really emphasize these self-care buckets. So maybe we could think about some buckets that might be in this space. So that could be things like nutrition, hydration, stress management, and mental health. That could be things like movement. It could be maybe a faith or spirituality bucket. For some people, that's in mental health. For some people, it's a completely separate bucket. Um, it could be things, I actually always put the bucket of self-compassion, which is not really like a one that you might think about that would be a self-care bucket. But for most of us, it is like the linchpin that makes this entire thing work. Because if we're overcompensating or undercompensating, we're going to really need to be focusing on self-compassion a bunch. So maybe thinking about like, what are some buckets that you guys have? Do you feel like those are pretty much, there's like sleep? Like what are other things that maybe are things that you need to care for yourself?
yeah, I'm someone who like I'm a little bit more of an introvert, so I definitely
Yeah.
need my like alone time of like to just kind of
Yeah.
like rest and
Yeah.
recharge and like just be by myself and not have a bunch of different stimuli because
Right.
and I love like, seeing people and being social and being around friends and family, but I find I get
Me too.
really tired. And
Me too.
sometimes even like if I've been on like girls' trips weekends, I'm
Right.
like, I need
Yes.
to go and just like
Yeah.
take a nap because I
Yeah.
just need to like no,
Exactly.
even when I'm on the trip, I'm
I've
like,
done
I'm
that.
gonna take a
I've
nap
done,
now.
yeah.
Like
I
before
agree.
I'd be like, oh, I can't leave. Like everyone's
Yeah.
gonna think that I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
like them or
Right.
and just like, nope.
You have a
I just,
battery.
I was like,
Charge it.
I
Yes.
just need to go be by myself in a
Yes.
quiet room for an
I
hour.
agree.
So
I agree.
that's definitely one of my buckets is having that kind of just like
Oh,
quiet time. And I could be
yeah.
reading or doing
Right.
something else, but like I just
Yes.
sit there and I stare at the wall really. Like my roommate in New York used to be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm relaxing. And she's like, you're just staring at the wall. And I'm like,
Right.
yes,
Yes.
I'm relaxing.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, that's
I
one
love
bucket for
yes,
me.
that's a
Yeah.
good
I'm
one.
very similar in that way too, that I
Mhm.
like to have my own time.
Yeah.
And for me, I like, if I go into my little greenhouse or I go see my
Yes.
chickens or just go
Mhm.
walk
Yeah.
around the yard and just kind of
Mhm.
the beach, honestly, is like my
Yes.
like, oh, I can totally
Yes.
zone
Mhm.
out. But I think for
Mhm.
me at this point, I'd really like to focus in like my movement, like, because that has always been
Yeah.
very healing to me, but that's been
Yeah.
something that's kind of been elusive for a
Mhm.
while. So I would
Yeah.
want to think about that.
I love it. So I think that is perfect. So we're kind of like honing in on a bucket that is really valuable to us. And I think the
Yeah.
neat part about this is that we're really learning about you as people. So anyone who's listening at this, like really the one that you're kind of like, oh, I just love sleep, or oh, I need alone time. Because everybody's different. I like to think about it kind of like the difference between a semi truck's gas tank and like a Fiat's gas tank. Like
Mhm.
if you are an introvert, you have that bucket takes a lot to fill. But you might be married to an extrovert, or you might have a best friend or a roommate that's an extrovert, and it takes them 10 minutes of alone time, and that's all they need. So we're really learning not just how to fill our buckets, but really what we need as people, and that you're not broken for being made that way, that you're not um that you're not like high maintenance or too much because you need to take a nap when you're on vacation with your family. It's
Right.
just the way that you were made. And the same thing with movement. Like, it's not that like you're being like, oh my gosh, I have to get my movement in. You're saying like, this is how my body feels good. And as our primary caregivers, we want to make sure that we're not just filling that bucket, but filling in that bucket in a way that feels authentic and right to us and our body at that stage of life. So maybe in high school that looked like dancing, right? And like a company or something like that. And maybe now it looks like taking walks or doing Pilates. Like it can be all different things. So we really want to not just honor ourselves as our people, but also honor the season that we're in with these buckets too.
So true.
And that's
So
where
true.
that like self-compassion
Right.
comes in too,
Yes.
of taking the time,
Mhm.
like, it's okay if I need to, go,
Right.
for a walk and, have that time or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, those are wonderful. Great choices. Mhm. Sure. So the next thing that we kind of want to work through, so once we have an awareness of all of our buckets, so those are our internal buckets. So I think about those like our care buckets. Now we have external buckets. So these buckets are wonderful, but they also can a lot of times steal our capacity. So if
Mm.
we think about like if you work part-time versus full-time, that's gonna or if you work part-time in a toxic job versus full-time in a job that's really fulfilling, one might be filling buckets or filling capacity, and one might be taking capacity. If you are physically sick, right? So that could be taking capacity. So not all of the other things, we really have to devote a lot of time to our self-care. If you have a big bill that came in the mail, right? Your financial bucket, that can like cause a lot of stress. You might need to like feel like so um all of these things are good to know how they are interconnected and interrelated so we can really put the intervention where it needs to go. So, like for instance, if we have ignored our finances for a very long time and now we're so stressed we're forgetting to eat breakfast, we wouldn't go and be like, why are you not eating breakfast? You should just get it together. We would say, this Saturday, you need to sit for 2 hours and focus on your finances to alleviate that stress. So, or connecting people with resources. Like maybe someone is caring for their elderly grandparent. And
Mhm.
so maybe they need extra help, right? So if we're not able to fill these buckets, they might need to ask helpers, maybe other family members, or getting someone to sit with their grandmom during the day so they can take a walk and eat food and things like that. So we really want to not just know about the buckets, but really to be able to see how they're interrelated in a way that's not judgmental and just kind of like calm. So that's why sometimes I like to do what's called a bucket inventory. So you can do this on your own. At another time where you literally write down all of the things that you're responsible for in your external space and all of the things that you're responsible for in caring for yourself. And this can be overwhelming at first, but just remember we're not fixing everything. We just want
Okay,
to have
good.
an awareness, right? And just kind of look at what are the things that are alarming. So this is the part. So if we were to just like kind of take a moment and briefly think about all the things in our life that are we're responsible for, we want to ask the question, am I devoting too much time and attention to this to be healthy long term? And sometimes that can be happy, like getting married, right? You're devoting a lot of time and attention to
Yes.
wedding planning,
Right.
which is
Right.
super happy.
I know,
But
this is
that
like, as you're talking, I'm like, wedding planning, buying a house.
yeah,
Big
all
thing.
of those things are taking your
Yes.
capacity, right? So we might need to put like training wheels on some of your self-care buckets. So this might be like going to Trader Joe's and getting those really easy meals that you just throw in the microwave. It might,
Mhm.
and that's not failing, it's just acknowledging your capacity as a human, right? So or things that maybe are we're not devoting enough time and capacity. So if we have a bunch of buckets that are alarming overfull, like woo, right? We eventually, if we're not careful, our self-care buckets are going to be underfull. So have you ever noticed that in your life? Like if something feels really um all encompassing, whether it's at work or with family or friend dynamics or things like that, that slowly but surely some of the internal buckets start to not get what they need. Have
Mhm.
you ever noticed that before?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through periods where it was like it took
Right.
every ounce of energy just to get through like my work
Right,
day.
work day.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
then it was, like I didn't even have the energy to think about I'm gonna, cook a nice dinner, I'm gonna
Right.
like exercise, or I'm
Right.
gonna read a book or even watch TV. It was I had to come home and stare at the wall.
Because I need a little time.
And there she is.
And there's my
And I was
self-compassion.
like,
That's what I needed to stare at
yes,
the wall. So,
exactly.
but yeah, no, I can definitely relate to
Right.
Yeah.
to feeling that way. Yeah.
I think for me, it's been something that if you ever come to the office early for your appointment, especially around lunchtime, you'll see either
Right.
myself just flat out laying on the table or Becca like laying on her table. I think for
Right.
me, like that is my, like I do that too, of like, oh, I need to just stop everything. I can't look at these 5 emails and whoever's texting us and saying they're going to be late or canceling or whatever. It's like,
Right.
no, like I need to stop. But then I also have moments where I feel like I have to do movement to like
Right.
either get stuff out or maybe even to fill up too. So
Yeah,
it's really
100%. So that's a really great thing. And I think this is why self-care is a really important part of just this whole thing that we're talking about, because a lot of times there's actually this theory. It's called, I'm going to mess it up, but I think it's called motivation theory. But when we start caring for ourselves in these foundational ways, that we actually build momentum. So like if you think about like stopping and eating breakfast, that actually gives you more capacity to have energy to cognitively write those emails. Now you're writing those emails and now you're like, whoo, got a little boost of dopamine because I just accomplished a task. And
Mhm.
now you're able to be like, okay, so I can go take a walk now because I just cognitively was able to do those emails. And so a lot of times we can kind of like almost be slipping down a mudslide of self-care where we're just like, I can't catch up. So
yeah.
that's why keeping things really simple and having what I like to call like this is like from the business world, but a minimal viable product for each one of these buckets. So if life is going amazing, your full nutrition bucket might look like I meal plan and I get organic food and I shop at Whole. I mean, everybody is very different what that
All
looks
those
like.
things, yeah.
Right, all those things. And your minimal viable product, the one that it might look like using like a rotisserie chicken or getting like those Tyson chicken strips and putting them on a bag salad. Like neither of those are failing. It's just we're achieving the goal of feeding ourselves in ways that feel really good to us. So, and that's what Sleek had said, like maybe the perfect alone time would look like you on a beach with a book. But the good enough alone time one is just laying on your floor with with the the lights off, right? And that's okay. So really just looking through and evaluating just of all of these buckets, what is full and what is empty. Like, and also acknowledging that your entire life is not a dumpster fire, most likely, that there you are achieving some bare minimum things in most of your buckets, most likely. So but just to realize what is am I devoting too much attention, not enough, and what's doing okay. Like the 3 bears, right? Too much, not enough, and just right. So what are your just right buckets too? And that's important to acknowledge.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, and I love too how you're talking about how they like intertwine, right? Where it's not just like each bucket is kind of like separate of like, okay, I
Right.
have my self-care bucket, I have my like
Yeah.
responsibilities
Exactly.
bucket of how your self-care can help you feel better through your like external factors and how your external factors can certainly impact your ability to feel good about
yeah.
they're all kind of
The building and I like the training wheels idea of it too. And I think for us, I'll go back to just the simple example of like home programming. Like everyone's so excited to do their homework. Maybe they're so excited to add like cauliflower to their diet for like, something that they're working on. But it does sometimes feel like even those maybe 3 exercises or 3 strategies feel overwhelming. And I find a lot of the time, like our second visit, it's like, okay, well, let's pick one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, I think that's a good thought of like the training
Yeah.
wheels. Like that makes total sense.
Well, I feel like a lot of times, like we live in this like all or nothing society.
Yes.
And so many of my
100%.
clients, they feel like if they just do one exercise or
Right.
one thing, that it's like, it's not enough. Or they need to be able to devote 30 minutes
Right.
in
Oh,
order to
no.
this one thing in
Mhm.
order to be able to get the benefit of it.
Right.
But it's like, look, doing 5 minutes of breathing is better than doing nothing at
Nothing.
all. So,
Right.
Right.
you know, we're working on a lot of with my clients is just reframing that mindset of
Exactly.
like this all or nothing type deal and putting in little like movement snacks or just
Mhm.
recognizing how the things that they're already doing, how that
Is a
can be
movement.
right
Yeah.
part of their you know, progress or healing. So yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And that really, like, to go back to that is self-compassion, right? So especially when we have these big life changes, and as women, whether we take any path, we have a lot of huge transitions, right? So from like high school to college, from college to career, like going through all the hormonal changes that we go through as women, like pre-menopause, perimenopause, pre, like there's so many things
Right.
there that can really decrease our capacity. But I think especially as women too, we have this idea that we're just robots, that like this shouldn't be hard, or this isn't hard for you, why it's hard for me. Because a lot of that is an invisible internal reality that we're either not acknowledging or not sharing. And so then we as providers, it like really helping our clients see that like you have so many things on your plate. Like just do one thing. Like one thing really does make a big difference. So
It
I love that
does.
perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and two, I think like if your example of like, oh, this isn't hard for anyone else, like, why is it hard for me? It is absolutely hard for everyone
is.
else. I think
Yes,
that's one of the things that we go through, you know, because we don't talk about a lot of these things. And so some of our clients are like, am I the only one? Or like, is
right.
this, you know, and it's just people don't open up or share. And maybe that's something that we need to put in our
Right.
self-care
A little
bucket
self-care
of,
bucket.
you know, taking the time to talk to our mom or our sister or a friend and
Right.
just, you know, have those
Like an honest
honest,
conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I saw something the other day that was like someone sharing something that they did with their partner of whenever someone was like venting or complaining, and not complaining, but just, you know, getting things off their chest. It was the person would ask, like, do you want comfort or solutions?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
sometimes you just need to get things off your chest.
Right.
You don't want people to be trying to like help fix it for you
Yes.
or tell you how to
Just
fix
to
it. You're
share.
like, I just need to vent for a second. And then you get that off your chest and you're able to just move on
It's
with
true.
your,
It's true.
with your
I
day.
love
So I think, you know, recognizing that we're all human, we all go
Oh,
through these
gosh.
emotions and we're not the only ones. And talking about that can help other people kind of realize too, like,
See it
okay,
too.
yeah, like I'm not broken, this isn't me, or I'm not lazy.
Right.
So yeah.
It's your
100%.
purpose, you know, and I think all of us have like those buckets that we love filling. Like for me, I love filling the, you know, the chicken bucket, if you will, which is probably external. That's like my children, right? And like those buckets. But for other people, like our dear friend, Dr. Kelly, like her bucket is like, I need to lift heavy weights, but like we can't compare those two. Like my lifting heavy weights is like the 5-gallon water bucket that I like carry from the front yard to the backyard, but like we can't compare our buckets that we like to fill to other people's buckets. So I think that is kind of back to, like you said, that self-compassion of, wow, like recognizing, oh, that's me and that's them. Or like Becca and I have different buckets to fill, and that's her, and then that's me, and just having that mutual respect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And having that mindfulness and awareness of, like you said, like writing everything down and like going through each bucket, like, okay, is this overfull, underfull, or not enough? And then how can you kind of like tip the scales in the other direction so that you can fill a little bit more into one bucket and take a little bit out of another bucket that might be too full. So
how do we do that?
Yeah.
Michelle? Like,
Yeah,
we actually do.
this is an excellent question. So one of the things that I feel like I see a lot of is just a lack of awareness of a bucket actually becoming overfull or underfull until it's too late. I don't want to say too late. That sounds fatalistic, but
I hear it.
until it's like, because there's so much noise, and we call in intuitive eating, we call these attunement disruptors. So if we think about our brain and our body are like a team, they work really well together. But we have been told our entire life to be mind over matter, like just suck it up, pull your bootstraps up, like keep going, don't worry about it. So
Right.
what ends up happening is we tend to really live in this like cerebral space of being like checks and things and to-do lists and all these things like that. So one of the things that can be really helpful is just taking a breath, taking a second, and really quieting the noise and really having our brain and our body have an honest conversation about how they're doing. I would like to think about our brain as kind of like the mama and the body's kind of like the kid. And so they really need to work together. So if we think about like, let's just take I'm trying to think of a good easy one to do. Like let's just take sleep, right? So maybe we prioritize and I see this a lot with my college students that I see, we're prioritizing studying over sleep. So that's because maybe we get our self-worth from having good grades, or we feel like we're anxious about it or whatever. So our brain would go, no, 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 you do not have time to sleep. You need to study. You need to figure this out. And our body is like, I am exhausted. Like, please just like put me to bed. It is midnight. I have to get up early to take a test. Like I'm over capacity. So that's an example of overfilling the study bucket and underfilling the sleep bucket. So what we would do with that is really look at it and go, okay, how did we get here? And again, apply self-compassion, not being like, oh my gosh, you study way too much or whatever. It's really being like, okay, like, do we need to work on like self-worth? Where do we get our worth from? Do we need to work on maybe like pacing our studying so it's not all at one time? So we're sacrificing sleep. Do we need to make sure that we have a boundary that we go, I will study until 10 p.m., but I need an hour to decompress and then an hour to go to sleep? So that's kind of where it goes to like, we want to have a minimum, but also a maximum of what we'll do. So if we think about with the sleep part, like the minimum might be that's helpful is like 6 hours. Like it's not the best, but you can kind of make it work with 6 hours. And then maybe you catch up on the weekends. And maybe a maximum is maybe we're ignoring on the other side. So this is where our body kind of takes over and our mind is shut down. We're ignoring our studying and just sleeping all the time because because that stresses us out. So that would be like, no, we can't sleep for 12 hours a day and not study because that's also stressful. So having that awareness of just like what we're overdoing and underdoing, but also that helps us have boundaries, right? So it might not look perfect, but we're saying like my boundary for nutrition is I eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the least I can do with while still maintaining a healthful lifestyle. So things like that. And just really picking one or two things that you can do. So if we think about what is maybe, can you guys think of a bucket in your life that's maybe alarming high or low?
Alarmingly high or alarmingly
Yeah.
low?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
I know. Well, you had mentioned movement. That was one, right? That maybe we were able to devote a lot of time to.
Your movement bucket.
I guess my movement bucket. Yeah.
Okay. So if we think about what is the least amount that you can do daily, weekly, and monthly to still have that bucket be okay? What do you think?
Yeah. I guess for me, it would be like getting on the ground and doing like breath work and maybe just
Right.
a little bit of like core work, like marching,
Yeah.
or even like picking up my kettlebell and swinging it 10 times. Like,
Right.
That's your
just
minimum.
that's
Yeah.
my minimum.
Yeah.
Like that is the
I
minimum
love
I can do. The maximum I would like to do, or
Right.
maybe my like area that I would feel most
Okay.
comfortable with would be to dedicate like an hour of movement to myself, whether that looked like a dance class or whether that was like a Pilates class or
Yeah.
even like taking a long walk outside or something.
Mhm.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that you're really seeing that there's like a beautiful range there, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like the Pilates classes 5 days a week is perfect
Right.
and that's always what I need to go for. Like, because we're in life, we have varying capacities, even week to week, right? So you're not going all or nothing, black or white. Either I do 5 days of Pilates or I do nothing. Like you're really listening how to care for yourself instead of control yourself. So that's also the other addition to that is that controlling is very mind centered. Like I have to do this, I cannot stop. And so when we think about care, we're really having our brain go like, hey, buddy, to our body, like, what do you want to do today? What sounds good to you? And then our brain makes the plan to make that happen. So there's a communication and a trust that's built when we do that.
Yeah.
I like that care over control, like caring for yourself versus controlling yourself, because even something as, like the pharmaceutical commercials are like, control your X, Y, and Z. Or when, for me, going to like through our fertility journey, everything feels very controlled. So it's, or even if somebody's coming to see us when they've gone through a surgery or something, it's like, oh, I have to do all these things to respect my body and to help my body heal, but it does feel very controlling instead of very caring. So reframing even like our care for that makes a lot of sense. So,
yeah, for sure. And a lot of times we go into the control space when we're scared. Right. So sometimes that's just acknowledging, like, maybe I have to go to counseling and heal from something, like if I've had a traumatic surgery or birth or whatever that looks like. Or maybe it looks like just giving ourselves that self-compassion, doing that breath work, and then being like, okay, you know what? I do want to do this, but this is actually okay. So I love that. It's great.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like my relationships bucket with like my family, my fiance, because a lot of the conversations that I'm having with like obviously my family and fiance are surrounded around like the wedding planning. We're looking at houses right now. So it's like I'll come home from work and the first thing that George and I are talking about is like, oh, did you see this house? Or okay, the wedding planner emailed me, or this person got back, like this deposit is due. And then it's like, we just go straight into like, okay, like task mode. And then it's like, oh, how was your day? Like, we're talking, we're interacting with each other, but it's more of like a transactional, not that it's like transactional in that way, but it's less of like actually kind of connecting with this person and bonding and spending quality time. And then, it's like last night we got into bed and he was like, I'm sorry, we didn't really get to like, like, how was your day? Like talk much because we both had like work stuff. We were gone for the weekend doing a lot of wedding stuff. So we had a lot of work stuff we had to catch up on. But I had to sit there and be like, it's okay. Like sometimes we have a lot of work that we need to catch up on, and we'll spend some time. We'll make sure tomorrow, like that we carve out, like we sit with dinner for an hour. We don't have the TV on and we just sit, we put our phones away, our computers away. We're not like doing work while we're eating, because that's a big thing that we do is like I'm sitting there with my laptop as I'm eating dinner. So I'm not like actually just intuitively like eating my meal. So those are definitely some that I work on.
That's a great thing, because I think what you even had, because you guys, it sounds like, have a healthy relationship, you were able to notice the alarm of being like, our like real like emotional relationship bucket. It will, if you like never checked in on that, eventually 3 months later, you're like, I'm not even really sure if I want to get married. This is so stressful and like all that stuff, because it was all transactional and it was a process. I like to say that we are people, not processes. So when we think about, a lot of times we approach problems very, again, in our mind, especially when we're stressed, but we need to go back into our bodies too and really listen to, like, if you're starting to feel really stressed about the wedding plan, just take a couple of days off and say, like, I'm going to set a boundary that I don't talk about weddings on Tuesdays. And this is why, so I can really look at all of the other things. Or maybe it's like you guys have a business meeting once a night and you just do all the businessy stuff. And then whatever gets done in that 1 hour gets done, and whatever does not get done. And that will actually help you be more, what's the word? Like more efficient with the time that you have, because you know that there's like, and obviously not to stress you out, like, oh my gosh, I have to get everything done in an hour. But one of the things that we do is that we try to shut everything down by 9. So then it's just relaxation time and then all those things. So that's something that's worked for us, but everybody's a little bit different of how that could work through and navigate. And we have hard weeks too. So just things like that. So what's one thing you feel like would help that bucket be healthy through this entire wedding process? What do you think?
I think it's probably going to be setting like a time limit of like, this is the time that I'm devoting to it, and I'm not doing anything else during that time, because I will be doing like 10 other, like I said, I'm eating dinner, I'm doing other things as I'm doing that, versus if I just say, okay, from this to this is the time that I'm going to devote to these tasks. Whatever I get done, great. Whatever not, like, it's not like life or death, any of this stuff that's going on. So, right. Yeah. So I think setting that boundary of this is the time that I'm going to like devote to this, and then just move on from it. I think that would be really helpful.
I think that sounds
really good. Yeah. Well, and the hard part is, but to our nervous system, it feels like life or death. And that's the hard thing, especially if we're stressed out. Like, we are living in that amygdala, we are living in that fight or flight state. So now we become reactionary. And so everything feels like the biggest thing or the most important thing, or I have to do that. So a lot of times by setting that limit, you're also able to do things that would help you get back in to that really wise mind space of being like, you know what? It's not the end of the world if we don't have matching napkins. It's okay. But when you're stressed out, it is not okay. It is, I need to have those. So it's all a work in progress. We're just doing the best we can.
I think what is kind of like coming up for me, not my personal like buckets, but what I hear often from our clients, and even like for all like the therapy kind of people that are working, like that are listening, because I mean, to be honest, our practice is a majority of PTs, OTs, speech therapists, teachers who are like these special education or like a specialty kind of teacher, nutritionists and dietitians, like all the helpers, the nurses. And then we have like the lawyers, the mechanical engineer, like processing people. And what I hear from a lot of them is that at some point, probably through our educational system of going to these college level classes and having our college level degrees and then having these advanced degrees, that you are so in your mind and you're so process oriented. And then all of a sudden, like, you don't have that hanging over your head. And then you're now like a spouse or a partner. And then you have little humans who have no concept of how that happens.
Right.
Like how processes happen. It's just like full life. And we don't have a time where we can switch over, even like gracefully switch over to not doing all those things. Because I even see it with like my husband, who's like, oh, well, this needs to be trimmed and this needs to be done. And I'm like, whoa, like we could just go walk outside and talk about this. But it comes very much from that place of I have to get the task list done. And I think it comes back to, it is kind of a little too late to recognize that that bucket is overflowing, but it might have started all the way back from our college years, or maybe even our high school or childhood years, that like these things might not be just right now. It might be, you might have not noticed that bucket was exploding on you.
Right. 100%.
Or super dry, right?
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing that I hear a lot is that, especially as women, we're taught that like our bodies are unreliable and we can't trust them. Right.
Yes.
So then now we have not only, so if it's like a little telephone, or someone has cut the line, or there's a lot of static on the line. So we're not even perceiving this. We're just saying like, I'm anxious. And like, anxiety is our body's alarm system to tell you that something is wrong. So a lot of times we're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so anxious? And then when we go back, we're like, oh, you're not sleeping because your baby's up all night. Or like, but we put that on like these performance metrics, right? And so we don't have A's and B's anymore, but we have like how clean is our house, or what like job we're getting, or things like that. And so it can be very, it's almost like in some ways we're really, really advanced in our mental space, but we're still sometimes little kids in how we like navigate and learn to listen to our bodies. And so we don't like to be not proficient. So we just kind of stay in our mental space instead of like really learn to listen to our bodies and kind of how they interact and talk to each other. And so that's really hard. And most of us are burnt out, and we're burnt out since college, right? Because we had to like get really great grades and do all these things. And we got our first job. And so we are at year 10 or 12 or 13 or 14 of just not even being able to listen to our bodies. And now our bodies are inflamed, exhausted. we have autoimmune conditions, our pelvic floors are a mess. And it's just because we've ignored our body for 15 plus years. And now it's finally like, I'm broken because and it can be healed and repaired and all those things. But that also starts with like learning to listen to it too.
Yeah, and just having that self-compassion.
Exactly.
That's where it all roads me back.
Circles back.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my gosh, this is
thank you. This
amazing.
has been very enlightening.
Like,
Definitely leaving with some strategies that I feel
Mhm.
like I can use to help
but we've got a few
with
more
my
months
buckets.
to go for the wedding bucket.
Yes, yeah,
That's
but
right.
that
Yeah.
was super, super helpful. And I know you said you have a little like worksheet that can help kind of with this. So we'll include that when we're putting out the YouTube link, and everyone, for if anyone's listening and wants to kind of do their little self bucket check and work through that. And then if clients are listening and want to work with you or reach out to you for nutrition or life bucket
Bucket
counseling,
Sure.
what's a good way for people to find you and kind of connect with
Absolutely.
you?
Yeah. So they can go right to our website, which is www.vita nutritionservices.com, and you can fill out our new client application. One of the cool things about us is that we take insurance. So a lot of our these visits are 100% covered or just the cost of a copay, which is really great. And we do a lot of nutritional care for women, especially. That's our focus. So we do like PCOS and fertility and all of those things in our practice. But we also we want to help busy people like care for themselves better. So if you do the bucket worksheet and you notice that all of your buckets are alarming, we can help with that too. Because a lot of times it's just learning to have that awareness of that too. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great. And we'll include that information too in the YouTube of your website and all of that. So, well, thank you so much, Joanna. It was so fun getting to chat with you and see your face.
Yeah.
I know.
Such a good opportunity for learning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. All right. Bye.
Hold on.